Good morning, everybody. We are going to be looking today at our series on Base Camp for the year. And we have come to this most exciting, amazing, groundbreaking story, which is about Moses crossing the Red Sea. And I've called it today a green light at the Red Sea. So we're going to be looking at this amazing thing that happened in Moses' life and think, what can we learn from it? So I'm going to read from Exodus. It says this: God made Pharaoh, king of Egypt, stubborn and determined to chase the Israelites as they walked out on him without even looking back. And the Egyptians gave chase and caught up with them where they had made camp by the sea. All of Pharaoh's horse-drawn chariots and their riders, all his foot soldiers. As Pharaoh approached them, the Israelites looked up and saw them, Egyptians coming at them. They were totally afraid. They cried out in terror to God. They told Moses, weren't the cemeteries large enough in Egypt that you have to take us out here in the wilderness to die? What have you done to us, taking us out of Egypt? Back in Egypt, didn't we tell you this would happen? Didn't we tell you, leave us alone here in Egypt? We're better off as slaves in Egypt than corpses in the wilderness. And God spoke to the people, and Moses spoke to the people, don't be afraid. Stand firm and watch God do his work of salvation for you today. Take a good look at the Egyptians today, for you're never going to see them again. God will fight for you, and you keep your mouths shut. God said to Moses, why cry out to me? Speak to the Israelites. Order them to get moving. Hold your staff high and stretch your hand out over the sea. Split the sea. The Israelites will walk through the sea on dry ground. Meanwhile, I'll make sure the Egyptians keep up their stubborn chase. I'll use Pharaoh and his entire army, his chariots and horsemen, to put my glory on display so that the Egyptians will realize that I am God. And the angel of God that had been leading the camp of Israel now shifted and got behind them. And the pillar of cloud that had been in front also shifted to the rear. The cloud was now between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel. And the cloud enshrouded one camp in darkness and flooded the other with light. And the two camps didn't come near each other all night. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and God, with a terrific east wind all night long, made the sea go back. He made the sea dry ground. The sea waters split. The Israelites walked through the sea on dry ground, with the waters as a wall to the right and to the left. And then it continues and says that the Egyptians come after them and they get stuck in the mud and they drown in the sea. And talks about all of the children of Israel coming through to the other side of that Red Sea. What an amazing story. And when we look at the story of freedom, that runs all the way through the Bible and the story of salvation. The Red Sea is often seen as when somebody chooses to follow Jesus and then they get baptized, and that's like the Red Sea moment where the waters part. And though they've come out of Egypt, though they've become Christians, they take the next step and walk and get baptized in water. So that's often referred to. But I think that it's amazing when you think about how many barriers we often have had in our lives, or maybe still have right now in our lives. Things that divide us between us and God, barriers that we have that we think are absolutely impossible to be moved. Maybe those barriers are in our relationships. Maybe those barriers, those things that stand between us and freedom are in our workplaces. Maybe they're in our situations, our health. Maybe there are barriers that we see that are impossible right now in front of us. And there's so many things that we can learn from this story. I can remember Tim has had 2 kidney stones, which are 2 blockages where he can't go to the loo, and it's so excruciatingly painful. And those barriers, those blockages need to be moved. And then I remember when he had appendicitis and the whole of his bowel and the whole of his insides froze and there was blockage, and the doctor listened to his stomach and he could hear nothing because of the blockage that there was in his stomach. That blockage needs to be freed. It needs to be moved in order for him to live and live freely and without pain. There are so many things that sometimes come between us and maybe the things that God has for us. Our daughter Millie, she was just about to get married just before the pandemic hit. And she was working for my husband, and he had to make her redundant as soon as the pandemic hit. And we were absolutely devastated because she was just about to get married. Also, that happened to my other daughter, and she was just about to have a baby. It was a really, really tough time. So Millie was doing this thing called terrazzo, and it's basically where she's making coasters and vases and beautiful, beautiful things. And she'd been doing it as a hobby. And then what happened was, because she was made redundant, she started to experiment with maybe selling it online, and she started putting out TikToks and social media things. And it grew, and it started to grow, and it grew, and it grew, and it grew. And then she moved out of her little bedroom that she was doing it all in, and she moved to some premises, and then she's moved to some more premises, and she employed people, and she does parties. And God did something really amazing where we thought that there was a barrier, where we thought that there was no way through, where we thought that something had been stopped and her dream had been stopped. Actually, I thank God that he made a way where we didn't think there was a way. And you know, God is always wanting to bring freedom to us. He wants to bring freedom where there are things that block our way, that aren't meant to be in the way. He wants to remove those things, just like the Red Sea, just like the people walking through the Red Sea. He wants to move the things that block us in order for us to know freedom. There's 4 things that I notice from this story that help me with thinking about how God wants me to be free. The first thing is that they all had come out, the Israelites had come out of Egypt. They come out of a place of slavery to a place of freedom, but now they find themselves in another place of oppression. They find themselves with a huge Red Sea in front of them and the army behind them. They feel trapped, they feel blocked. They thought they were free and they weren't. How many times in our lives do we sometimes think, we're going to do this and it will bring us freedom? And actually, we find that it's more of a struggle, that there's another barrier, that there's something else that happens. Sometimes when people become Christians, they're like, right, yeah, I'm going to become a Christian. I'm going to go God's way. And then they find a whole new set of things that they have to kind of push through with. How true that is for us sometimes. We come to a place where we think we're going to do this, then we have to keep pushing through with different decisions, and we have to keep pursuing freedom. The second thing I find is that we need to always be remembering what God has done. Now, there have been all the plagues that had happened. There had been 10 plagues. They had seen miracle after miracle. These Israelites had had so many miraculous signs, and yet when they came to the Red Sea, they disbelieved. They didn't think that anything was going to happen. They thought they were all going to die. They lost all faith. They lost all hope at that point, though they had seen so many miracles. How often, when we have seen God move time after time after time, look after us and walk us through situations that have been so hard, and yet when we come to a new situation, we'll think, oh no, it's all terrible. What? God's left us. And we need to remember the faithfulness of God in our lives. Remember what he's done and keep reminding ourselves of those things. Thirdly, God moved despite the moaning and despite the blaming. I don't know about you, but sometimes when you're taken somewhere and it doesn't all work out, we can moan. and we can complain. Sometimes if Tim always does our holidays and he plans where we go, and we all say, yes, let's go here. But if we go on holiday and something doesn't work out, we're always the people moaning, oh, we didn't want to come here anyway, did we? And we moan and we complain. Let's not be moaners. Let's not complain. Let's stay faithful, even in the most difficult situations, when we see there's a barrier in front of us, even a barrier like the Red Sea. Let us remain faithful, grateful, and not moaners. That's what I want to do with my life. And then the last thing, let us keep moving forward. God actually says to the Israelites and to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Get going. Keep moving forward. Don't stop here. Keep moving forward. You know I'm going to do it for you. You know I've promised it for you. So keep moving forward in this situation. Maybe you're in a place where God is speaking to you and saying to you, keep moving forward. No matter what's in front of you, no matter whether you feel fear right now, keep moving forward and see what God wants to do in your life. So I pray right now, where there are barriers, where there are blockages, where there are things that stop you being truly free, whether that's in your emotions, maybe you just don't feel that you are free in your emotions to cry, to laugh, to be. May God unblock those emotions. May God unblock the things physically that need to be unblocked. May God unblock the things spiritually in your family, in your finances, in your workplaces, in everyday life. May God unblock the things that need to be unblocked, and may you have a green light at the Red Sea.